So let's look at loops in C and how loops in C concerns and affects us. Conditions, are what are very important parts of loops. In C, we have three major kind of loops. Major kind of loops. We have the while loop, we have for loop, and we have do while loop. We also have one called nested loops. And so today, let's see if we can kind of talk about for loop, while loop, and do while loops in C. So what do we talk about first? All right, let's just go to our folder now and see what we have there first. We have for loop, we have while loop. Let's start with while loops in C. So let's say, how does this while loop work in C? All right, we have some kind of message here that I wrote in the comment section of this program. Please, can you mute so that we avoid callbacks and background noise? Please, thank you. So loops in C, they execute a block of code, what I just said. They save time, errors. That's true. Now let's look at how loops work. A lot similar to how if statements work, especially your while loop. So what while loop do, it loops through or it goes through a block of code as long as a specific condition is true. So we can look at this code now, and we have a number equal to 0. You know this is a variable that we've declared and initialized to 0. And then while the number is less than 7, we want to perform some kind of condition, and that would be to printf %d. And so what we want to do now is loop through these numbers as long as the number is less than 7. And then we want to print out some kind of things. By mere looking at these statements here, who can decipher and tell us what these statements would print? By mere looking at what we have on our screens.
I think it's going to. Okay. Can I contribute?
Yes, you are. You are free to contribute.
Okay. This code prints numbers from 0 to 7.
Thank you.
But not on the same line. I think on different lines. Because of this /n new line. This diameter, you people call it. I don't even know what to call it. It will print from 0 to 7. New line character. Yes, new line character. Yes.
All right, thank you for that. Let's go ahead and see if Mr. Brilliant. You said what?
0 to 6.
0 to 6. So we have two answers now. We have two answers now, and let's try to compile our code to see what would print out. So can do GCC while loop .c and then while 1. All right, I've compiled the code and let's print it out. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it clear as to why we did this? Or how come we were able to do 0 to 6? Is this clear?
Let's go back to the. Let's take the code again.
One say less than 7. Less than 7. So that means 7 is not included. Logically.
Exactly. What are other ways we could have printed this out? Maybe I can come here and do as while numbers are equal to 6. Would this work?
No, this will not work.
And why would it not work?
Yes, the first initial, we initialized, we assigned 0 to num,
Yes.
and then the conditions there is not equals to 6. So it will only enter the loop when num is equal to 6.
Thank you.
So it will check 0 is not equals to 6. So it will not even enter that loop at all. Let the know running the contents inside the block.
Thank you for that one. Is anybody confused as to this explanation? Let us know. All right, it seems everybody clearly understood it. And so let me run it again just to confirm. Let's go ahead and while 1. You see what happens? It doesn't run. So it fits into our description that says the loop would execute or the loop would start as long as a specific condition is true. And the condition here is while the number is equal to 6. The number is clearly 0. So we cannot run this loop. What if we turn this loop number now to 0 and say while the number is equal to 0, it should go ahead to print this? Will this run?
Okay, this will run.
Okay, can we have another person? Sorry, but can we have another person tell us that have so far started to understand or grasp a hang of what loop does? So that we can carry everyone along. That's just the reason. Another person who is following. Will this work? If yes, why? If no, why? If it would work, but would have bots inside, what's the bots that you think would have?
Okay, I think it will work, but it will be equal to 0. Because in the condition where we are saying that none is actually equal to 0, not 0.
So you think it would work?
I don't think so, actually.
Because it will work.
Because here we are assigning, we are saying that this num is nothing else but 0.
Mm.
The output is going to be 0 because it's the same thing at the beginning.
All right.
I think it will only work if we remove the increment.
If we remove the increment.
No, it will work.
Yes.
All right. So let's keep the increment and
without removing the increment, it will still work.
so let's
It
keep
will work with
everything.
the dot.
So it will work
It
with
will
a
work with
bot.
the bot.
All right. Now let's see.
Yes.
Let's see the
And
bot
the
it would
bot
work with. Let's try to run this first.
will if you print 0, it will print 0.
All right. Any bots?
Yes, I said it will print only 0. The bot is, it will only do it once.
Yes.
What if we don't have that increment of the number does not have increment? If we remove the increment.
Actually, that would be a bad programming idea.
Yeah, because I think that increment is what actually makes it.
To see, you want to run into an infinity loop.
All right. Let's try what he's just said now and remove the increment.
We're running 0, 0, 0, 0. I hope your system will not hang.
Let's try that now. And all right. Okay, so someone did suggest that we should do this. I don't know if it's clear. Wait, let me make this clear. What was suggested to I do? Let me try to make this nice for you by removing the new line, so you can clearly see what's happening. All right. The scene in hacking movies that you used to see back in the days.
I will stop and make it not crash you.
So what's happening here now? You look at this screen. For someone that has not encountered, or if you've encountered a problem, what is the problem here now?
You didn't write from. This is what we expect. Because this is our loop, and unless the condition, there should be a condition to terminate the loop, and there was no condition kept there. So it will keep printing. So the program is not at fault. I think we are the ones at fault.
Yes. So if we look at what we have here now, we've done some kind of things. First, let me change this back now and say as long as the loop is less than 7, right? And still remove my increment and run this. And some other person try to imagine.
Let's see the code first. Let's see the code and the code again, sir. Yeah, remove the increment. Okay.
And I've said why the number is less than 7, it should print the numbers.
Yes.
I think it will still run to infinity.
Yes, I think that's expected. Since you're not incrementing it, and it's not increment itself.
Okay, so let's see this. So I just changed the condition now, and it's still giving me this problem. So can someone, another person, or anyone else tell me what is my problem? Or why this thing continues to print 0 forever?
Okay, I think 0 is the first. I think 0 is the first. This thing is.
That 0 is the first.
Can I also explain?
Yes, you can also explain.
Okay. So I think you have said right from the onset that we are talking about looping. And looping is simply a continuous process. In as much as the condition is true, then the 0 will be printed. So just that the speed of computer is so fast, that's why you can see plenty zeros in a split second. So the condition is true. We initialize the variable to be 0, and you do not increment it. So it keeps checking 0 again. 0 is less than 7, I'll print. 0 is less than 7. So for each looping, the condition is always true. So it will never run to 6 or even 2. 1 is not coming out because we did not even implement the code. So that's why we keep getting 0, 0, 0, 0, and it will continue like that until eternity.
Yes. It would continue like that till probably system crashes. And that's how nice or dangerous this loop could get. So who we're working with while loop.c, right? Let me veer into while loop.c bar. And so is it clear now to everyone why our code was running until eternity? Everyone, especially those who are following but have not heard their voices. Is it clear to you why this code continues to run?
Yes, it's clear.
All right. And so this is it about loops. This is it about loops in C. So it means we have some kind of loops that are infinite loops in C. This kind of loops continues to run as long as it's not terminated. And it turns out that in some cases, it could be a good thing. For example, your system apps, once you start your, it will trying to see the, please, can you mute? There's one. All right. Okay. So, as we've established, we cannot have something called an infinite loop. Look at this example now. If we're trying to run this, what would happen? From what we've just said previously with that other one. We'll try to run this example. What would happen? What may happen if we try to run this now? Can someone tell us what would happen?
I think it will still print 0 till infinity, but there's no increment, and its I is less than 5. If there is increment, it's meant to print from 0 till 4.
Yes. So if you don't add the increments, it's going to keep running till, as it were, eternity. And that's why it's very important that you look at your loop statements. But you are always going to make this mistake. Oh. You are always going to make this mistake from time to time. And then when you make it, please don't panic. So now that you've known about this while loop, if you go back to one of your tasks on debugging, you would see that in one of those tasks, you were asked to debug a program, as it were, that causes an infinite loop. And one of those things that could cause an infinite loop is when there's no increments. Or like we would see when we talk about for loops, when there's no statements. But so far, you have a clear hang on how the while loop works. So while a condition is true, the loop continues to work. Any questions from while loops? Any questions from while loop?
So the while loop, that's the condition part. Does it have to be just a single condition? Like, can while loop like contain more than one condition?
Can while loop contain multiple conditions?
Yeah, it's just like the for loop where you
So conditions like,
okay.
Can I come? Can I come in?
all right, I was thinking, please just go on with your question, then we can have the person come in.
Okay. You know, the question he asked, I thought I'm thinking of a different thing. Maybe what he's trying to say. No, for loop takes a different parameter. Maybe that's what he's trying to say. Because the arguments of for loop is always like the condition,
Yeah,
I think.
separated by
So yes, it's different from the parameters of while loop.
while.
To answer your question in yes or no, yes, while loop can take in multiple conditions, but have to be separated by logical operators. So you can have conditions like, let's create a file now. No, let me use one of the ones I have strength to start writing it in. So we can have something like while number is less than 7, or you can have another condition here. While loop allows that. You get that? Was that your question?
Yes, something like that.
Yes. So just like in if statement, you can have multiple logical operators joining or making sure that you run your if statements to your taste. While loop, you can also have things like and, or, that joins two conditions together.
Yeah.
So while loop can do that. All right, before we talk about our next kind of loop, any other question? All right. Lastly, before we go ahead and leave this while loop, we enter another kind of loop called the for loop. Let's look at this. I hope my voice is audible enough. Let's look at this problem that you may experience here. Pretty much something you experienced previously. So let me go to my GitHub accounts now and show you this problem. How would you have fixed it? Yes, you have a problem like this, and something here causes an infinite loop. At this point, is it still clear from what we've just talked about? The code that is here and what we comment out and everything. It's clear why we've done what we did. We commented out some codes to avoid an infinite loop. in this condition here. It was one of your tasks from debugging. And now, is there any doubts with anyone, especially for those who don't understand? Is there any doubts? Is there anything that's not yet clear that you would love us to talk about from this task? Oh, I assume everything is clear and that's fine.
I would like to ask a question myself.
Okay, please go on.
I understand the part that was commented out to avoid going to an infinite loop. But the printf condition, the statement in that printf, that was the backslash and the forward slash, zero, is it O or zero or what? For these things, I don't understand it. I understand infinite loop avoided, but that part, yes, and I understand this forward slash n. But that other part, I don't understand what. Is it just fashion or what?
Okay, I can do what does dots in C. So it's a new line character, 15 type of escape sequence. So let's go to it now. Already it means backslash. So when we do it the second time, it gives us the backslash character. For the first time, it would ignore the backslash. But when you do it again, it gives you the backslash character. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. That is.
So once again, like I just did, I went to Google. No cramming of anything. Forgetting is very much allowed. And once you forget, straight to Google to ask. So it gives us a backslash character. So if you were given the same task now, that you shouldn't comment this out, but you should avoid an infinite loop, what would you have added? And in which line?
Would increment I after the put char.
Yes, okay, we'll decrement I. Yes, that is exactly. And that was that for while loops. Let's see into, okay, let's still discuss about loop. This time, let's talk about do while loop. So we can feed into this do while loop folder. And see what we have. Do while loop is a lot more similar to while loop, but it performs the condition at least once, even if the condition is false. So it does this, it do this while this is true. Like in this example, we're asked to printf%d, print out a number for short, and increment it while I is less than 5. And here I is equal to 0. So let's try to compile this now, and as you can imagine, shouldn't give us any problem. Okay, so by 1, and it gives us 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. How about I come here now and I change the first variable I declared, and I put this at 7? Would this loop still run?
Will.
Why would this run? Why would this loop run?
Not run since
Look at the condition we are working with. Why I is less than 5, we should do all of this. But here we are saying I is equal to 7. So does this loop run?
It will run though, because 7 is greater than 5. 7 is not less than 5.
I also agree with you that it won't run. Because logically,
It will run though.
7 is greater than 5. But somebody is telling us it would run.
Mr. Bill, one thing about do while loop is that he refers to, so that means there is anybody that he print that 7 first and second y. So it's everybody that do first statement now switch to y.
Okay, so first do before going to the why.
Yes.
I
agree with that.
You agree with that?
Yes.
So it seems like me and So it seems like me and who was that who answered? Was that Chika that answered that it won't run? Me and you are on one side now. The rest are against us.
It might be right.
See the person that I'm supporting. Okay, let's test it.
Yes.
Let the checker not fall our hands. So, okay, let the compiler not fall our hands. Let's see. So let's see now. Wow, that's one. Die.
You see?
Hey. So is it clear now what do while loop does? It does its first before checking. But after the first instance of running, it did not run again. And so that's the difference between a while loop and a do while loop. A do while loop does it at least once first, then starts checking the condition. A while loop does not do it once first. It checks the condition first before doing it. So if we had a while loop, it wouldn't have run. But in a do while loop, it would run. So what are some things? We said a do while loop first does this thing at least once before checking for the condition in your while state. But a while loop will first check for the while before going on with the condition. It just follows this pattern. C would read your code from top to bottom. So from the start to the end. And the start here says it should do this while this. So it would at least do this once. And then it would go on with this. But when we had 7 here, this was not possible. So it only ran 1. Hope that was clear. Okay, any questions on this do while loop? Let's look at another one, which is the for loop. And for loop is one that you must have used a whole lot of time. In fact, the 3, we use them a lot. Probably would see examples for them. Now, in for loop, what example of for loop can we do now? The for loop works with the initial value, condition, incrementation, or decrementation. So we have the initial value, we have a condition, and then we have the increments and decrements things. So let's go ahead and see how this applies. What example can we use to explain a for loop in C? Let's use one simple one that we've been using before. So, for example, oh, fine. Yes, print out all the alphabets from A, Z. Or we could say, let's print out the numbers from 1 to 10. Right? So we can do something like this. First of all, our integer, let's call this number. Set it to 0. Next up, what do? We come here and say for numbers equal to 0, our condition. Now, this is our initial value, number equal to 0. So we could also come here and say for int number equal to 0. That would be correct. Now we have to do the condition. What's the condition to print out numbers from 0 to 10 as it were? What condition could we use to print out these numbers from 0 to 10?
Number less than or equal to 10.
You said number
Less than or equal to 10.
Okay, number less than or equal to 10, like this.
Yes.
And then what do we want to do to these numbers?
Increment.
Exactly.
Number plus.
Exactly. Now in here, we can come and put our statement. So can I have something like printf and maybe a %i / new line and here with numbers. So what would this do for us? It loops through all the numbers. For this number 0, and so go through all the numbers from 0 to 10. And as long as the number is not above 10, it's going to print it out for us. So we can have something like this. Let's try to compile now. For loop.a-o and call it loop 1. Yeah, so we have a problem. What was our problem?
I was starting the problem. I thought you would go away. I said the thing specifier supposed to be D, not I. Because we are referencing or like I think
The comma.
You didn't put the comma after the end quotation.
the percentage is the principal D instead of I.
So one person spotted out I and said it should be D instead of I, and the rest agreed that our problem was the comma. So let's try one without trying the other first and see if we'll still have the same issue. So I've just tried one. I've changed the I to D.
We have the same issue.
And let's see. So is our problem from the percent I? Clearly no.
No.
So can now change to back and put this and use percent I, and let's see what happens. And let's run this. So our program runs even with the percent I, and our program has just printed out from 0 to 10.
I think it will not. Even if it runs, we are not really following actual the normal way of doing.
Okay. So what would you describe as the normal way of doing it?
To describe integer, right? You can either use I or D for integer.
Yes.
Okay, there was someone who said we are not following the normal way. Can you please, don't worry, feel free, express yourself. Is it because of the percent I? Someone's background is really noisy.
No. Before I was thinking of that percentage I, but
Yeah.
I knew. But the another issue, we declared our function as a returning function, and we are not returning anything yet.
Oh. So what can we return in this program?
We are supposed to return 0.
Which would mean that our program is in fact returning a success.
Because we declared the function as a returning function. It wasn't void.
And so maybe putting something like this would solve the problem. Do you think that would have solved the problem? Do you think this would have solved the problem?
I don't think
Having void has empty blank.
I'm sorry, I don't know much of programming.
No, someone said since our function was not void, we should have returned as
Yes, I was the one that said it.
yes.
I was the one that said it.
Yes. So would this solve our problem?
I'll leave it. I don't know. But I think it should. It should. It should.
All right.
No, it will not. It will not.
All right.
Having empty bracket and putting void is still the same.
Same thing, yeah. No, it's not the same. No, for me, put void or empty bracket is the same thing. So, but it does not solve the problem. It doesn't address the problem. I think what you have inside the brackets, they are more or less the arguments. So sometimes when you work with someone,
I go ask.
And
has a talent, you have showcased your talent now.
and so for global peace to reign and for we to avoid World War III, let that return 0 at the end. This return 0 means that our program, yes, in the real correct sense, for example, if I was running this on code blocks, it would give me a warning that I should have returned something. 0. And this 0 means that everything is successful. Our program is not returning any error. But if this was a function that returns something, then I would really specify what this function would return. From the start, I would have to specify what the function would return. But for now, yes, correctly, as part of our correct coding pattern, returning 0 would be a good idea. But since my compiler doesn't warn me or even gives me an error for that, as you would assume, that most Python developers would choose to be very lazy with syntax. Otherwise, you are correct by saying we are supposed to return 0. But if you leave it, your GCC in this case will not warn or punish you. But something like the checker may actually check for it. Oh, please, please, please take care of the background noise. Thank you. Please. Thank you. And so that's what for loop can do. Let's try to make this for loop interesting. What kind of programs can we run to make these for loops interesting?
Nested.
Okay, looking at a nested loop. Yes, would have been an interesting one. But let's do this. We want to print let's say we want to print out the multiples of the number we are given. Let's say we want to print out the multiples of a number we are given. So rather than printing out 1 to 10, let's say we are given the number 2. But now I want to print out like 2, 4, 6, 10, 12. How do we do that? Something like that? How do we do that? I want to print out multiples of the numbers we are given.
Then we can I say something?
Yes, you can.
Then we say that our instead of saying num plus plus, then we say when we are incrementing, we say num is equals to num plus 2, and that will take care of it.
All right, so let's go ahead now and do this. I'm actually looking for a file and I don't know where I've kept that file. I really don't know where I went to that file. I really don't know where I went to. So let me just see you back. I wish I could call the file. So let's create this now. I want to seed into for loop. I did not close the door properly. Oh, I didn't close the door properly. Can you please help me close the door from that side? All right, so let's create this file and pretty much call it multiple.c. And in here, we want to follow this pattern we're given now, include stdio.h, simple, int main, and okay. So, can someone guide me through the process? How to do it? Want to print out the multiples of a number. So assuming the person entered 2, wants to print out 4, 6, 8, 10. So the multiple. In other words, if we are not going to call it multiples of a number, you call it multiplication table. So it's worked. And let's try 5. Let's do int number. Right? Let's do int number. And let's come down here and call another int too. And maybe call this thing multiples. All right, number and multiples. Now in our printf, we are going to ask the user to enter a number. And then we can use our scanf to get the user's number. And num. Now let's look at our for loop. Let's come here and do something now. Int small c. So let's call this in small. And instead of having my statement here, let me have it inside my. Let's see if that would work. Shortest possible code we can write. Equal to, let's say 1. And then we want to now say something. As long as multiples is lesser than or equal to 10, we want to go ahead and increment the multiple by 1. And let's have a printf. Now, printf statement, we want to print whatever we've been doing. %d slash the new line. Now, let's come here and do the numbers times multiple. And let's end this state. You can return 0. Let's see this. Let's see what this print out for. So once you use GCC to do compiling.
Close the block.
Oh. Yes. One of our statements is not closed here. So let's close that. So let's do GCC model.c. Right, A out and number 2. Can you see that we still have the same result? Let's try another number now, and let's try number 5. We have 50. So this multiplication table, let's go ahead to explain it. I do hope that this explanation will be a lot more familiar with what you're already used to, especially since we just declared a for loop. So let's do this. Let's make this interactive. So far, how many variables did we use for this program?
2.
Fine. One was declared inside our for loop. So in for loops, it's allowed for you to declare variables. It's very much allowed that you can declare variables inside. And then here it's pretty much simple. This number is initialized to nothing because this is where our user would store the number. We can go here now and try to do some complicated things by writing equal to 0. But what's the essence of doing this? Better to leave it like this. Then here, since you've understood here, let's look at the for loop. We are saying this number called multiples should be equal to 1. And then as long as the multiples of the number are not up to 12. So the multiples are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. As long as they are not up to 12 numbers that you can see here. Let me compile this. You can see this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I was using 10 before now. So I just changed it to 12. So if I should run this again, it will now be 12. As long as it's not up to that 12, it should continue adding. So if it's up to 12, it stops. If it's up to 12, it would stop. Now in our printf statement, for all of those things it's adding, we want to do the number times the multiple. This would give us our multiplication table. So something like 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 4, 2 times 3. So you can see it's multiple now. So when we put number, the number this user puts is equal to 2. So in this number here, I can write something like, you can replace this number with 2. And that's all fine. Now, times multiple. The multiple, we get it from here. So I could even call this times I or times anything at the same thing. Don't even let it confuse you. So we are saying, let's say the user imputes 2. 2 times, if it runs 1 time, it will increment. It will run 2 times, it will increment. So the multiples keep changing. 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4. And so for each of these multiples, we are simply saying it should do the mathematics, number times multiple. I could create another variable, a third variable that Mr. Ian did just now, and do the same thing I did there. But not to make it look complex, I just came here and did number times multiple. And with this, when I print it out, for each time the loop goes through, it prints me multiple of that value. Let me try to see if this would work. Let's try to take away the abstraction. That's okay. It's out. Let's see 4. All right, so it works. It means I don't even need this unnecessary brackets after the printf, making my life much more. So just number times multiple. So far, is it clear what we've done?
So can we remove that int small away from that 4? Will it still work if we remove it?
If I come
And
here,
we should put it on that where we have the int now at the top here.
And do something like this, it would still work. Then all I have to do here is say maybe mol. I can simply say equal to 1. Or here, I may not even declare anything. This should still work. Mol equal to 1. And then just go ahead. Should still work. So we have 2. That's that. But in most times, like you would see many other people do, they would come here and define it. Leave all this alone. You would see a lot of ints inside your for statement. They are declaring and initializing their variable there. And it's also allowed very much. It's up to you which one you think would be better, especially for the audience that wants to. Or if it's you and God that is reading your code, you may do anything you like. So far, we've been able to print the multiples of any number now in 14 lines. Let me go and do this. I'm not a fan of return statement. So I just wanted to show you that without my return statement, it would have still worked. Don't follow me on that's what maybe Python can do to you. Make you very lazy with typing some of this syntax. Please add your own. For me, I'm not going to add. And nothing My compiler doesn't question me, so I'm fine. So I can.
That means the return statement is not necessary.
The return statement is telling your program that everything was successful. But I know that everything was successful. Return especially has a great value when the function you are working with is not void. But for all these functions, they are returning nothing in reality. So whether I could go here now and write return 10. So I could go here now and write return 10. And everything will still work. If you are using code blocks, if you write return 10, you would see a message that says process exit with 10 status. So sometimes it all boils down to the compiler. Please, that noise. Is somebody using an earpiece? Please, the person using earpiece, that noise. So far, ask me questions from this. This is for loops. I'm actually muting because of the background noise, not because of any other. This is for loops in C, and you can quickly see how you need some kind of logic. It's not difficult. We are simply using a for loop to go over all the numbers we have. So for the multiples, continue to increment as long as it's less than 12. Increment. And when you increment, print out the number. So if I had done something like this, let me remove this. Make it a little more clear. If I had done something like this, and this, you see what would have happened? 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So the only thing that has changed from your regular for loop with what we just did is to tell it that it should. Right. Is to just tell it that it should give us the multiples of all the number it goes.
What if we do num times 2 instead of the mod?
The num times
Num
2.
times.
Okay, so let's try that and let's see what we get printed out. Is it clear?
Yes.
So the difference between num times 2 and num times multiple is this. This is a for loop. A for loop goes over each character, each number, each data, one after the other. That was why when the other tags, a lot of people use for loop to do the A from character A to Z. I was like, okay, but are you not sure you look from a source? Because every source will tell you to use for loop, and that's very true. Because for loop goes over each character, so we are saying for each digit you go over. So for the first digit, that is, if the number is 2, for the first digit it will go, that is 2 times 1, 2. For the second digit it will go 2 times 2, 4. For the third digit, 2 times 3, 6. Up until the 12th. And multiplication should start from 1 now. Let's try and play around with our code. Let's put 0. And let's put 0 now. And so we now have from 0, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. But in real multiplication table, you're not going to see 2 times 0 because that's not even possible. So what it does now is 2 times 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. So that's why we started from 1. You can do it 0, correct. 1, better. And so it goes over till the 12th digit. So if I do from 5 now, it should start from the 5th number. That means something like this and this. So 10, 12, 14 up until 24. So is this
I
clear?
also have an idea of how to do it, but I'm not sure it will work.
All right. So you know what you do for me with your idea?
Yes, sir.
You are already a collaborator, right? On C practice repo.
Not yet, though. I'm not yet to collaborate.
So if you wish to be a collaborator on that project, just send your username. And when you come, clone it. Please create your own branch and don't push to main. Create your own branch with your branch name and push to your own branch. Or just send your username and that's it. So these are interesting things we can do with for loop. Once again, once you get these questions here, don't start thinking far. I heard comments like nested loops. Maybe if we were asked to print multiples of a shape, I could get where that is coming from. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and I could get the idea of nested loops. But the first thing I'm going to think is there any way I can print this without having to put another for loop inside a for loop? So what I just did here, this would have printed out 2 about 12 times for me. And this for loop that I just did, you're very familiar with it. What we've been doing. So I'll just ask myself, is there no way I can use something like this to get the multiples of it? That's all. That's just all. It works, and this a little much more better, at least for you that's just starting it, to understand. And even moving forward, there is no gain when you write complex codes. The more you can make it simple and abstract it, better. That's why you have more Python developers and Python jobs than any other programming language. So if you can, make sure your code are as simple as they can be. Less lines, the better. I hope this is clear.
I want to ask.
Go ahead and ask.
The task is too good. How do you know how to use the while for or two while loop? That's giving you the particular loop to use. Or can you use any loop for all the tasks?
How do you know what kind of loop to use? Right? Is that your question? How do you know the kind of loops to use?
Yes, the task is easy.
All right, let's.
You got to know how to analyze and how to ask questions, not in the appository format.
All right. That is one person you may know or may not know, but he gave the answer that you just got to know how to analyze the questions. A for loop traverses, hey, English show. It goes through, it iterates. The first time I heard iterate, I was like, what do they mean by iterate? When I knew the meaning of iterate, I can't say, chai, don't sabi anything except for. A for loop goes through all the letters, all the numbers, one by one. It enters each of them. So the for loop would enter 0, come out from 0, enter 1, come out from 1, enter 2. That's for loop. Enters each of them, checks them. The while loop almost works like an if statement. It just checks the condition. Is 0 less than 5? Yes. Oh yeah, print 1. Is 1 less than 5? Yes. Print 2. But a for loop here is more thorough. It searches inside them to observe anything. And then that thing it observes is what it takes out. So in most complex projects, you will need a for loop first, and then maybe a while loop inside or something like that. But it just boils down to what you want to do. If it's some simple task that is asking you, is this is this condition met? No. Then you can use a while loop if it's asking for if the condition is met. But for tasks like this, for loop would be better. Then where do you use a do while loop? Where do you use a do while loop? Let's look at an example that can help us examine where we can use a do while loop. Not this example now. Remember the task we did last time? Last time, that C task where we had an if-else statement. If number is greater than this, if this is greater than that. I don't know if you still remember. Let's look at BI tax 1 dots. All right, you remember this tax where we said if age lesser than 15 or age is greater than 35. Who remembers? Who remembers? Please, if you can hear me and you were here last time, please.
Okay. I remember the task. I was there.
Okay. So you remember how we did this with an if statement to collect only inputs that are lesser than, that are between 15 and 35, right? You remember? Yes. Is there a way we could have? Yes. Is there a way we could have done that in a much more simpler, in a much more simple manner? Was there a way we could have done the much more simple manner using do while loop? Yes. Did he say though? Let me copy it again. Let me copy it. Paste here like notepad. So before now, I was working on one JavaScript problem like that, and JavaScript low-key has violence. It won't tell you. So if you're good with JavaScript, after now, please let me know. One problem out. This is it. If else in Java in C that help us allow only inputs between 15 to 35. Between while loop, for loop, and do while loop, which one do you think we can use to print this out? Which one do you think we could have used to print this out? Abi network has done it again. Between for while and do while loop, which one do you think we could out?
I can switch to do while loop.
Thank you. Do while loop. So how can we do that? See what we want to print out. Remember, last time we said we want to accept only users between we said we want to accept only users between 15 to 35, right? And then we use an if statement. Enter your age, scan age, if this. So this was steps we took, an if statement. Compare this now with a do while loop. So let's put it side by side. And let's do some live coding. Int age. All right. So how are we going to do this? What's the syntax for do while loop again? Is this correct? The syntax for a do while loop. What format does do while loop? Once again, like I would always tell you, I don't even try to cram this. What is the syntax for a do while loop? And let me go here. Do statements while. Okay, so this is the syntax for it. Button. Let's come back. So here, we want to do some kind of statement why the condition is true. So something like printf. So I'm going to copy this. Enter your age / new line. Copy. Paste. Right? We are doing this while this condition. So printf this, right? And then what else can we do? Scanf, copy, paste. While, so what's our condition now? This is it. Copy, paste. Let's look at what we've just done. Using a do while loop, that same thing we did an if. We have said do this while that. Let me try to just make it fancy. And it's do these conditions. So I indented my code using tab. Do this condition why this is. Let's compile that. Please, if you spot a mistake, let me know. I'm a regular customer to some kind of really mistake. Oh, we had one just now, and it's saying we should close it a semicolon. That Mr. Ian was saying terminates. That's the right word to. Okay, but so moving on, when you hear terminate, not one big thing. I'm just saying close it. All right, the moment of truth. Enter your age 3. Enter your age. You understand what's happening? Enter your age 20. Our program is done. But let's run this again. Enter your age 2. Let's do this for the last time. Let's say 40, 70, 60, 36, 35. You understand what we've just used our while loop to, our do while loop to. Do you understand what we just did here?
To collect multiple results of the.
I don't understand.
I've been waiting for your comments now. As soon as you get there, please ask these
What
questions.
we are trying to say is that once the age is less than 15 or age is less than 45, the printf is going to be enter your age, and that was at the beginning of
Fine.
our output is going to be enter your age.
To anybody, let me remove this else if it's for now. If you don't understand what we did here, can you relate to what we have here? Let me remove all this. Let me remove all this. Can you relate to what we have here? Do you understand what this line does? This one in Notepad. Do you understand it?
Can I explain that?
No, for the person that says he didn't understand what this one, do you understand what this one?
Okay. Yes.
So what is it doing? What is this one doing? Tell us.
Which one is it? The print? Is it the print? Sorry, on
This
the
one
age
now.
between 15.
This one, yes. What is it doing? What does this code do?
And 35. This code is going to print. It's going to print sorry only age that is 15 and 35 is allowed. Once the value enter is less than 15. Once the age enter is less than 15 and age is less than 25. So it's going to give us this sorry only age in 15 or 35 is allowed at the when we execute it.
Fine. So what this code will do is ask you for your age. And if your age is lesser than 15 or greater than 35, it's going to tell you, sorry, only ages between 55 is allowed. You understand it to this point?
Yes, please.
Now, we take this same thing here and use a do while loop. Do it. And here we are saying do this condition as long as the ages are lesser than 50, lesser than 35. So it's going to continue to ask you to enter your age as long as your age is lesser than 50 or greater than 30. You understand the do while?
Yes.
If you had used a while loop to print out this statement, don't even run. But a do while loop will run it first. If you had used a while loop to say why age is 50 or 35, or it should print enter your age, it's not going to even print out because by default your age is 0. So it's not going to run. But this do while loop will first of all give you the opportunity to enter your age. Do the condition first. And then if your ages are less than 15 or greater than 35, it would ask you to do it again. Enter your age. Enter your age again. Enter your age. What condition, what kind of situation uses a do while loop in life? Take for instance your password on your phone. When you start your phone, when you restart your phone, it tells you password needed. And until you get your password correctly, it's going to implement a do while loop. So it's going to say, it's going to continuously ask you to input your password while your password is incorrect. That's an example of a do while loop. Passwords, your password in phone. And it's the same method that we are using here. So we say enter your age. As long as these ages don't fall in between 15 and 35, our loop is going to continuously prompt us. So if I have HHB, and yes, that's where our code now encounters a problem, taking only digits. So if I have G, for example, it's going to run into an infinite loop. And so there's a way we can solve that by giving it some kind of state, by disabling characters from accepting characters too. But what we've done here is that in this age, the person puts any value like 10, 15 is allowed, right? So let's say 14, 12, 36. It's going to ask the person to continue to enter. As long as this person continues typing what is not allowed, the person will keep entering his age until the person put an age that is allowed. So for example, let's say I put 22, and then I can move on to the next part of my code, which I didn't implement here. That's why our program ends. So just this method in if statements that we did, we can also use loop to do the same thing in if. So let's say we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines of code. here. And now we can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and also 7 lines of. In terms of which one is better, maybe an if statement, because this statement has been able to, even if you put characters, this statement would handle it. But this loop, you now have to write more. But that's just a general overview of how we can use do while loops. When you want to do something first before you check. Then while loops, I've already explained. It seems a whole lot more like if. For for loops, when you want to perform operations that will require you going through each character and doing something, for loops. Those are the 3 popular kind of loops. Then we have nested loops. When you want to do things that would make the compiler shout for you, nested. That's not the definition though. Maybe some other time we'll discuss nested. Any final question?
What about break and continue? Does it need to loop?
Yes, break and continue are things you can do in loop. And just as it says, one will break your loop, one would continue. That is, move over one statement from that line to the next. It's going to, I don't know why they call it continue. It's supposed to be that continue. So it's going to skip that line, but it puts continue, like continue to the next statement. Break is going to terminate. There are examples where you can use that. And honestly, it's up to you, like every other person, to find out where these examples can use it to continue to get better in your learning. That's totally, so that could be something you may look at, like how to do loops, break and continue, and even nested loops. You can go ahead to all of them. You can go ahead to search. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Please go on.
All right, please, just in maybe like, it's not gonna take more than 30 seconds. Can we just run that password stuff so everyone can see?
Which password?
Like in the looping, do well password is this and that, continue. If the password is not actually correct from the memory.
Okay. So if I should do that, that means I'll be storing a password. I would now be storing a password in memory. So I'll write the while loop, or I would write another condition. So actually another statement or another function to store your password, whatever the user types as his initial password. And then I would ask the user to retype the password. If the retyped password does not fit in the first password, do while, continue, like then the do while loop comes in. Looks simple, but not the easiest of tasks. Not something I would write in 3 minutes. Except I use a value like I just used for the age, 10, 20. But that's not really password, because password could carry strings and alphabets. So it may be a simple program that you can write in that would involve much more than just a do while loop, but it's around that concept. Continue to do this while some things, why a condition is not met. So why the password condition has not been met. Continue to prompt the until you call another function that says after 3 attempts, tell the user try again in 30 seconds, something like that. So maybe something.
As if let's say we have a variable called background set already as string, then you do enter password, then the end is while password is not equal to that variable.
won't start to work. That takes more than 1 minute.
Could probably work. Or maybe you use something like a command line argument to ask the user to input the password. Or could call a static password, and then while your password is not equal to what is written in this function or written in this command line argument, could probably work. Just examples, since my brain is thinking now, would that work? Would that not work? Does C allow that? Or is there a function built in somewhere in one of the libraries that would make it easier for me? Since I've not tried it before, certainty is not there, but it's around this base. All right, so lastly, if you look up on GitHub now, you have a folder called loops. So if you go to your GitHub, lastly, check. Loops is way much more easier, at least the tasks that we prepared here to test ourselves are way much more than what you have on your, yes, me having 1,000 contributions. Oh, okay, those that are contributing, why is my contribution? Don't know. Okay, I did push to GitHub today. If you look at these loops now, this loops folder yesterday, if you have it on your system, you should have a loop. You check on tags. By clicking on tags, you have tags 1, txt, tags 2. Tags 1 is very simple. Print all the alphabet in lowercase followed by a new line. You write the answer into a file called tags1.c, answer folder. So for those that are still having problems with feeding into the folder and the rest, this one is just to test you. Get into the right folder to write the answer. This one is as simple as it gets. What most people did actually, yes. Tags2.txt, it's one that would test, it will test your logic and your thinking, but it's simple. Write a program that allows the user print out a string a specific number of times. This program should allow the user print out a string a specific number of times. What are we saying? For example, if I compile gcc loop.c here -o and call it 1, enter the string you want to print out. So I can say Bwave is string, right? Enter the number of times I want to print it out. 5 times. And it's print out Bwave about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know if you get what the tax is about. Enter the string you want to print out, and the string is see you on Monday. Enter the number of times I want to print this out. How many days do we have till Monday? We have Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So let's say 3 days till Monday. And it says, see you on Monday. And yeah, I have a problem here because I want to see how you fix this problem because I don't have enough memory for my long string. And so let's just see how you do that. Until then, so this is the tax. You write the answer in a file called tax2.c. The answer. It just has one small thinking to it. No nested loops, no plenty functions, no. It's just as simple as a for loop. That's the hint. Don't even think about doing it. Already, you know how to get user input. You know how to ask the user the number of times you want to print it. So all we want to do, to take the user input and the number of times he wants to print it, give it back. So lastly, let's clear our program. And what is the string we want to print out? seriously, I'll see you on Tuesday. I don't have enough space for this, but let's print it out once and says see you Tuesday. I hope you did enjoy today's session. Recording would be and should be available sometime tomorrow, but it's something that you can check out and surely do it. It's not difficult, it's as simple as it seems, and I would want to see how you are going to that using follow.